Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hippie Hyena. And today we're looking at Tim Pool. Tim Pool, how to describe Tim Pool to someone who doesn't know who he is. Tim Pool, I don't know, if you've ever read the Preacher comics by Garth Ennis, there's a character in that excellent series known as Odin Quincannon. Now, if you imagine Odin Quincannon was about 5 years younger than he was in the comics, and if he wore a beanie to hide his baldness, that's basically who Tim Pool is. We're going to take a look at some of Tim Pool's YouTube offerings. This particular one is about Johnny Rotten or something.
Punk rock legend Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols was recently seen wearing a Make America Great Again shirt, and Twitter erupted with leftists freaking out saying, how could this have happened?
Tim Pool's idea of Twitter freaking out is a couple of tweets with no likes that he's found with the search function. So what do the left really think about this? Well, I'll take it upon myself to be their representative, and I'll say I don't care. I mean, I didn't even know about it until before Tim Pool told me about it just now. And why did I not even know about it? Because I don't follow Johnny Rotten, because he kind of hasn't been cool for quite some time.
A punk rock icon being for Trump? How could someone from an Irish working class background actually support Trump?
Probably for two reasons. One, he's not very bright. And two, he's a literal millionaire, so not very surprising.
It's not Johnny who changed, it's you.
Yeah, absolutely nothing changed for Johnny. You know, he started out as a working class guy from Ireland, and now he's a literal millionaire and is kind of quite famous, I guess. Yeah, there's no difference between those two states at all.
Take it from someone who worked at Vice magazine at a time when they were anything but politically correct. And now look where Vice is, absolutely politically correct.
Man, he is so openly bitter about this. So butthurt. It's like, let it go, man. No one cares. I don't know if any of my audience is British or would even know who Alan Partridge is, but there's a British comedy character from the past called Alan Partridge, who is a sort of, I guess, spoof broadcaster. And part of the main joke of what's happening is that he's nominally a professional TV presenter, but he's unable to conceal his very deep-seated personal issues, which come out in the show, his resentments and bitterness. And that's generally considered funny, a comedic type angle to put on a character. But Tim Pool is basically exactly like this. Yeah, you're upset that, you know, things didn't work out how you wanted them to at your previous job. But really, get over it. I mean, how many years has it been since Tim Pool used to work at Vice? Let me check. So, from what I can see on Wikipedia, it looks like he left Vice in 2014, 6 years ago. Jesus Christ, get over it. Move on.
And I talked to some of my former Vice colleagues about the change.
Sure you did, Tim. Sure you did. I'm absolutely certain you're still in contact with those people. I'm absolutely certain that they answer your calls. No need to add any qualifiers. I buy that completely.
And they said, you guys changed and became right-wing. And I said, I'm still a fan of George Carlin and Jon Stewart.
So, I mean, Tim, you're not just right-wing, you're ultra-right-wing. You've been spending a lot of your time calling for a civil war against the left. You're basically an ethno-nationalist. Now, maybe you were similarly alt-right when you worked for Vice, I don't know. But saying that you're a fan of George Carlin as if that in some way excuses the fact that you basically launder Nazi propaganda for a living, it's just totally ludicrous.
And hold all of the same, for the most part, political positions, I am a gun owner now, that I did back then. And then they said, you're right.
And the whole bus burst into applause for me, lifted me up onto their shoulders, paraded me around, and then chose me to be their leader.
Maybe it is us that changed. Maybe it's you all on the left who just drove off a cliff, and now you're surprised to find that the guy who was constantly antagonizing the establishment is still antagonizing the establishment.
Which is sort of a thing that might kind of work if Trump hadn't been president for the last 4 years. Johnny Rotten isn't antagonizing the establishment. He is the establishment. He might not have been a while back, but he certainly is today. He's been a contestant on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. You basically can't get more milquetoast and mainstream and establishment as that. Jesus.
But there is something else here. Perhaps a sign that regular people are not on board with this far-left lunacy and this weird cult of intersectionality.
Yes, because Johnny Rotten, a celebrity reality TV show contestant and aging rock star, is definitely just normal people. I mean, this is just so absurd. Because look how excited Tim Pool is about this. Like, how much it means to him. Because, you know, he's constantly on the side of people like Dennis Prager. But he wishes that the cool kids would invite him to the cool parties. But they don't. And the only time that you can find anyone who's even remotely rebellious supporting the sort of ideology that Tim Pool supports is when they've basically aged out of being cool. This is a really pathetic display, even for Tim. Because the thing is, it's not a coincidence. It's intrinsically linked. The right wing seeks to uphold traditional values. Being anti-establishment is all about breaking those taboos, not upholding them, not reinstating old-fashioned things. It's about doing new shit. So whether or not Odin Quincannon Jr. here really wishes it was the case, the fact is it isn't and can never be.
Could it be perhaps that Trump is actually winning? The polls are broken again? Maybe.
No, and no, they haven't. That's just an absolute joke. I mean, who knows? Anything could happen in the election, of course. Certainly if certain sides are willing to cheat. But Trump almost certainly cannot win the popular vote. That's like a 99% probability. There's a double-figure gap between the two candidates. Now, I'm no fan of Joe Biden, but the idea that the polls are tightening when they're at historic levels of non-tightness is just stark raving mad. Stark raving mad. And I don't know what these types are going to do when, if it does go the way it looks like it almost certainly is going to go, because their minds just can't face that kind of reality. I suppose they won't face it. They'll say that, oh, the Democrats probably cheated. In what sense? This sort of like nebulous mail voting fraud thing that is just total rubbish. That Tim Pool just lives in a complete fantasy world where if he doesn't like reality, he just rewrites it.
And that's really what I want to get into. You know why? Because I saw a video from Bridget Fedesi. You may know Bridget. She's a columnist, a podcaster, and she's politically homeless, right? I guess she used to be a liberal, kind of like me, but now she doesn't know what she's going to do. She posted a video where a Trump parade was marching for minutes past an intersection in Los Angeles. Los Angeles had a Trump parade. And there have been a bunch of Trump parades throughout the country recently and boat parades. And maybe that sentiment that we're seeing says more than what a poll could ever say.
Well, it can't. And that's the whole point of polls. What you've got there is a bunch of anecdotal nonsense. I mean, there are a lot of people in America, and even if 20% of them were raving Trump supporters and gathered together to run a parade, that would be a lot of people. But so what? Quit clutching at straws is so pathetic. This is just like one long string of heady copium.
I mean, come on. LA is as blue can get. Where are the Trump supporters coming from?
Out of state.
Now, okay. Perhaps these Trump supporters are just the few and far between 1/3 of the state that actually are conservative marching around.
Yeah, and also they're busing people in from out of state. There's a bunch of people touring around and going to loads of these rallies all over the place. It's like that scene in the Beatles movie Help, where the Bahamas police force is being introduced to a guy from Scotland Yard, and the chief of police is just showing the same police officers again and again to try and make him think that the police force is bigger than it is.
Welcome to Nassau, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to present PC-17, PC-6,
Yes, sir.
PC-47,
Uh-huh.
PC-63,
Ah.
PC-9, PC-85, PC-4, PC-21, PC-85.
Or maybe there are people like Johnny Rotten Regular people who don't like the establishment and never did, saying straight up, Trump is the counterculture, not you.
Sometimes you hear a sentence which is wrong in so many ways, it's kind of impressive. So, one, as I've said, Johnny Rotten is not ordinary people. Two, Johnny Rotten may not have liked the establishment when he was younger, but today he is the establishment, being that he's a literal millionaire. And Trump is president of America. He's about as far from counterculture as you could possibly get. And it's such a desperate reach. It's so transparently desperate, pathetic and reaching. Come on.